So, welcome again, this time to one of our the third breakout sessions of this conference. Thank you for staying with us. In case you missed the very start of the day, 15 minutes or so ago, just to reiterate, I'm Fiona Howie and I'm the Chief Executive of the Town and Country Planning Association. And I will be chairing this session, which will provide an overview of the importance of strong local policy and an exploration of different planning approaches across Europe for the delivery of green infrastructure. I'm delighted that we have two of our European partners presenting this morning. So the format will be Christine and then Silvia will present about their experiences, and then we will have time for a Q&A, but we will save questions for after both presentations have been given. Please, if you have questions, please use the Q&A function. So if you are on the event tab, I think on this side of your screen, please use the Q&A function so that I can try and keep an eye on questions. You're welcome to use the chat function to talk to each other, but in terms of trying to keep an eye on the questions coming in, please use the Q&A and I will try and cover as many of those as I can. So we will get on without further ado. So Christine, please, if you will put your camera on. Our first speaker is Christine Schwaberger. Christine is a project manager for Perfect for the Department of Spatial Planning within the provincial government of Styria in Austria. So welcome, Christine. Hopefully she will appear in just a second. Or maybe she won't. Oh gosh. Silvia, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Silvia. Perhaps if we take you first, if that's okay, and then hopefully we will find Christine. Is that okay? So let me introduce you. Sorry, Silvia. So Silvia, who was meant to be our second speaker, but
okay, Christine is here.
We've got Christine. Christine, can you hear me? I think maybe she might be having some connection problems. Right, Silvia, if you, let's start with you and then hopefully Christine will come back to us. But Silvia is a spatial planner and she has worked for the Urban Planning Department at the Municipality of Ferrara since 2012. Welcome, Silvia. Thank you ever so much and over to you.
Thank you, Fiona. Okay. Just 1 minute. Okay. Okay. Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Okay. So, hi everybody. I'm Silvia Mazzanti. I work as urban planner and as a project manager of Perfect for the Municipality of Ferrara. Ferrara is a medium-sized town, 130,000 inhabitants in northern Italy, Emilia-Romagna region between Bologna and Venice. It's famous for its cultural heritage from the Renaissance, and it was included in the World Heritage List of UNESCO in 1995. Today, I'd like to describe our experience in building the Perfect Action Plan and the legacy of the project in relation to our coming activities. Okay, in this slide you can read our goal defined in the first application form of the project. 20% of public green space in the city of Ferrara to be enhanced through improved policies to deliver additional green infrastructure uses based on good practices learned through Perfect. And as the other partners, we had to work on existing policy instrument, trying to improve it. Ours was the land use plan, called the Council Structural Plan, which defines the strategic choices of the city for the development and the protection of the landscape. In particular, at the beginning of the process, we decided to work on the strategic guideline called the Green City. What we read in the document is that the green spaces must be considered as an infrastructural network, a sort of alternative city. But you can see in this small image that the green urban areas are represented in a flat color without any information about the type of space, ecological quality, different uses and users. It's not surprising because in 2006-2007, when it was elaborated, the debate and the sensitivity about the value of the natural capital of urban environment were weaker than today. And the main purpose of the guideline was to increase the public green surface, but without a strategic approach. So no idea about the need of building a network between the green spaces, maybe just some suggestions about the ecological corridors for the animals. And also the climate change issue was ignored. These 3 points synthesize the change of context since the plan was approved. The interest has shifted from the quantity of areas to the quality of the green infrastructure network. The climate change impacts are clear. Ferrara is a very wet city under sea level, and in the summer the temperature is often over 40 degrees Celsius. People's average age is very high, so the effects can be very dangerous, and I refer to heat strokes. Third, at the end of December 2017, the Emilia-Romagna region approved a new regional law on land protection and use. This law modifies the planning instrument framework, including the council structural plan that will no longer exist. So the new plan that the municipalities will have to approve in the next few years is called the General Urban Plan. For all these reasons, we realized that the action plan could be an opportunity to influence the emerging urban plan, making it a green infrastructure-oriented plan and testing a new strategic approach focused on ecosystem services and multi-benefits provided by urban green spaces, with the involvement of the stakeholders from the beginning of the planning activity. Okay, this diagram describes the new approach based on the integration between different spatial analysis, some traditional, some others more innovative, as ecosystem services analysis and the climate analysis. The experimental documents of the action plan are seen as a sort of pilot initiative of the coming urban plan. Okay, now I'm going to show you some contents of the action plan. Action 1 concerns mapping. The suggestion for this activity came from a good practice learned thanks to Perfect. The lesson.
Okay. So now my video camera is off.
Okay. Okay. The suggestion for this activity came from a good practice learned thanks to Perfect, the lesson tools for planning and evaluating urban green infrastructure by Sester and beyond, by a professor of Oxford University, that the partnership attended during the first meeting in 2017. First step, the GIS database of the Municipality of Ferrara has been updated and implemented with information about the types of urban green spaces. according with the categories used by the National Statistics Institute in order to monitor the green space heritage. Individual trees, tree-line, woodland, cultivated land, lawn, bare soil, hedge, shrub, and of course also blue infrastructures. This classification does not allow to identify the ecosystem services provided. So the database must be integrated with the qualitative and quantitative information about the services in the urban environment. The analysis has been focused on a short list of 11 services, the ones we thought more relevant for our challenge. About provisioning, urban food and biomass, regulation and maintenance, air quality, noise, flood, pollination, and microclimate, and cultural services, recreation, sense of place, aesthetic, and spiritual mental health. Okay, then we built this core matrix, which assigns to every type of green space a score for every service provided, from 0, no service, to 5, high provisioning. I think it was probably the most difficult task of the overall process because our team included different professionals and competencies, architects, engineers, a biologist, an agronomist, a landscape planner, and everyone with a different point of view and criteria about the design of features in the informatics system and the value to assign them. For instance, do we consider the existing use or the potential? In case of a perfectly equipped but not used area, what is the recreational service value? And building a common language is always the starting point and the key for a successful transsectorial project, meaning many hours of work and discussion also. Okay, this is an example of the maps we can build using the new database, cultural services average. The darkest circle is the linear park along the ancient city walls, the most important and iconic green infrastructure in Ferrara. Okay, what can we do with this tool? Comparison of neighborhoods in order to define public works priorities. Identification of suitable areas for planting trees or for placing equipment as outdoor sport facilities and so on. And the connection of the spatial information with other databases, in particular demography. Where do elder people live, but also where are the existing aggregation structures, like schools, churches, cultural buildings, community centers, and so on. Okay, now an example of the practical application of the methodology. During the first phase of the Perfect project, we worked on seven different areas in order to achieve our dimensional target. Area 1, via Padova, is the linear city between the historical center and the Po River. Worker settlement built in the 50s, so high density, few green spaces inside the neighborhood, and the high road that divides the residential areas on the east side from the industrial and the chemical plants on the west side. So the critical aspects are also noise mitigation and air quality. Okay, we started with the analysis, integrating traditional land use information with new data about the green space network and the wind direction during summertime, an aspect that we had never considered before. Okay, this is the demographic structure of the neighborhood. 30% of inhabitants are over 65 and just 4% are infants. A very common situation in Italy. Okay, few images of the on-site visit focused on the state of art of the green spaces. This is the high road. Okay, this is the riverbank. It is quite decayed in this section, but after a few kilometers it becomes a well-traveled cycle path along the river to the Adriatic Sea. And more images. Some forestation initiatives have already been completed in the last 10 years. Instead, other areas are completely empty and useless. Okay, these are the ecosystem services map we built using the score matrix I have described before. And after the technical analysis, the second phase was the synthesis of the collected information in a SWOT analysis we conducted with the stakeholder group of Perfect. Skipping details, I would now like to focus your attention on the strategic vision for the green infrastructure network of the site that we have shared with the stakeholder group. Enhancement of the linear green infrastructure along Via Padova to connect the historical center to the river by increasing trees density and by promoting sustainable urban drainage systems and nature-based solutions. This is a conceptual scheme of the vision composed by different layers and actions. Of course, they have different feasibility levels because some of them concerns private areas, and the challenge for the future is to find sustainable ways to involve the owners. I will show the most relevant actions. First, the peri-urban woodlands, in order to contrast the urban heat island effect on the east boundary, and a different type of afforestation on the opposite side, more suitable for human activities and leisure. Next, the implementation of the cycle route along the main direction, north-south, very important to enhance the relation between the city and the Po River and its natural capital. During the pandemic, when many travel opportunities have been forbidden, many people have discovered the pleasure of bike trips along the river. And on the right, punctual suggestions for the ceiling and the trees planting action. Okay. In the slide, we can see the implementation of the green network inside the plots grid, working on the street sections to promote nature-based solutions, especially to create shade. Last action, the preservation of the existing orchards and vegetable gardens that are currently managed by local communities. Okay. Last but not least, the climate analysis, the climate comparison between the two scenarios, ex-ante ex-post, so without and with intervention. How many degrees does the temperature drop during the summer days? in some cases 4 or 5. I think maybe the scientific value of this elaboration is not excellent. It's a demo software called EnviMet that our National Research Council was testing a few years ago. Maybe I think it's more suitable for smaller projects and designs. However, it could be an important tool to communicate the benefit of urban greenery for people else. The last slide shows the legacy of Perfect for the coming General Urban Plan, the catalogue of the actions we have defined for all the 7 pilot areas. It can be used in all the other neighborhoods, and it can become the operative framework of the ecological strategy of our city. And it's also a glossary to communicate with our stakeholders, making them aware that green can mean many different things, and that our cities need a strategic vision for the green infrastructure network. And that's all, and thank you very much.
Thank you ever so much, Silvia. That was fantastic, and I think so many interesting points within that. But I thought your
I'm here.
Christine. Hi.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay.
At least we've got Christine, that's good. But I think that emphasis on shifting the emphasis from quantity to quality, I think is a shared language. And also I know your final point, one of your final points around the glossary, helping to communicate with other stakeholders. So I think communication is a really interesting point, which perhaps we can come back to in the Q&A, but thank you again. Now, Christine, I think we've got you. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So pleased to see you. Just to reiterate, I will introduce you again. Christine is a project manager for Perfect for the Department of Spatial Planning within the provincial government of Styria in Austria. Welcome, Christine, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the delay, but there was some problems. I try to open now my PowerPoint. I hope you can see it.
Not yet.
Yes? Okay, sorry.
No, we can't. Well,
you can't?
No.
Ah, come on. Okay, try it again. Now it works, or?
Yes, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, sorry. It's completely different than yesterday. Okay, hello everybody. Hello all the Perfect partners. Hello all the people hearing from Europe. As I was already introduced, I'm in charge for the Department for Environmental and Spatial Planning in the government of Styria, which is a province in Austria. I'm speaking about regional planning, as we are province here, and the importance of political buy-in. Just to introduce the role in the project from Styria. Our 2 policies which were addressed at the beginning, which we try to change, that was the purpose at the beginning of the Perfect project, is the Special Planning Law of Styria and the Building Up Law in Styria. The planning department is the checking authority for all these instruments. So the rules are set for all the 286 municipalities, and the municipalities have to follow the rules, but they are in charge of their own for the local planning. So the principles are set, and there are a lot of determinations already given in the different guidelines in the law and so on, but we should take it much more seriously under the aspect of environment. So the aim of Perfect is for us from the Department of Styria to implement much more green infrastructure with its multiple benefits in the policy instruments of the Styrian Spatial Planning Law and the Building Up Law. So the minimum content in the planning instruments we already have needs to be increased regarding to the green infrastructure. A horrible big slide, sorry for this. Just see the colors. This is the planning system in Styria, it's the blue ones. We have a bottom-down system, so we have regional planning at the top, and the municipalities have to follow it, besides the law, also to follow it. The legislations, which are the red spots you see. On the left side, you see the green infrastructure. It's already existing in a lot of guidelines and so on, and also in the law. But it's more or less a little bit living beside the special planning still. These are the existing guidelines we have. We have the Styrian Special Planning Law here, and also some guidebooks about environmental assessment, special planning. We produced with the GRAPS project, also where the TCPA was lead partner, the guidebook for green and blue special planning. And we have a regional development concept, which is above the municipality, the local planning, as I mentioned before. The regional development concepts are already having as a content areas to keep free. The so-called green zones, like you see here at the picture, the slide, which are, and also the priority areas for agriculture. These are the yellow colors. So these areas are not allowed to explore more building up areas. They have to keep free, for example, for recreation, like the green zones, but also for the agriculture, the yellow zones. So this is a way where we have in the regional planning already determinations for keeping green infrastructures. When we come down to the spatial planning instruments, the local planning, we have the local or the development concepts where there are already determinations about green zones, corridors, areas for agriculture, flood risk areas where there are along the rivers 10 or 20 meters to keep free. So these are also some determinations for the greening and so on. In the land use map on the right side, this is the scale 1 to 5,000, where there are also some determinations about keeping free the areas along the rivers. In the zoning maps, the detail maps, which it goes really to the real estate, to the plots, there are also, the municipalities can put in determinations. They have to put it in. This is in the law as a minimum of determinations. So political buy-in, I like that line or that words a lot. Political buy-in sounds very nice. As I said already, the rules for special planning for all the municipalities are already set in the law. But each municipality is in charge of the local planning. So if they make a new map, a new plan, or part of the new plan, they always need in the decision meeting a 2/3 majority of council. Of course, the planner who helps the municipality has to work according to the law, but also to the regional development concept, so to the higher level above. But you can, as you see now, 2/3 majority, that means there is a little bit political will behind it. Planning department, as I said before, is the department which I worked for since 2 years ago. They are checking all these planning instruments, and it comes, all these small changes comes to a monthly meeting in the Styrian government, and it will be finally decided. So this governmental decision meeting is also a little bit influenced by politicians. So that's why the aim of Perfect was for us from the beginning also to convince the politicians that they have a feeling about green infrastructure, as they are the decision makers. And that's why we did the peer-to-peer meetings, for example, in Cornwall, and some study visit, always with politicians together. You see here, I had that slide also yesterday, We had a peer-to-peer meeting with partner Amsterdam and Cornwall in Cornwall 2017, and we took one of our political referees there to get a feeling about what is Perfect doing. And one of the mayors in the south of Graz, of a small city called Leibniz, he was impressed about the project from one of our stakeholders, from the planner there of the city, and he initiated a study visit to Ljubljana. So we met the mayor there, and they had a nice exchange of the ideas. So the whole council of this city joined them. The change, maybe it's, I'm an optimist, so I think to having involved all these politicians, it helped us a little bit, maybe with the last amendments of the special planning law and the building law in February 2020. This is also decided by the political will, but there were now additional determinations in both laws, according to use more green infrastructure and also for the general building issues in the building up law. So this changes concerns, for example, reducing the ceiling factors, increasing new green infrastructure, using more multi-story car parks, and so on. And that these determinations now are also, for example, about using native plants and so on. So this was all, the political will was in that way already, that they listened to our ideas. And we had to make all the partners an action plan, and the outcome of the action plan for us was the cookbook, the so-called Green Infrastructure Cookbook. We made a collection there for recipes for green and healthy planning in a very easy, understandable way. As we said, okay, we want to give this cookbook, and we already spread it and disseminated it around to the mayors, to the municipalities, with the councils, because they have to work on it. So the recipes are there, for example, needs good like when you cook a meal, you need good ingredients. So for example, the ingredients are the special planning instruments, like the zoning map of Graz, for example, with a lot of green. Yes, that was my presentation. I hope you could understand me clearly. Thank you very much.
Thank you ever so much, Christine. Yes, we could certainly understand you, and that was really useful and quite different, I think, from Silvia, but both really fascinating. And I think the action plans, I hope I'm right in saying that action plans are available in the expo along with the expert papers, and hopefully the cookbook is in there as well, because it
should be.
So Silvia, if you wouldn't mind coming back, thank you ever so much. It was very remiss of me in between Silvia and Christine. I should have reminded people to please put some questions in the Q&A function if you have any. We've had one or two, so I will start with those, but if you have more, please do put them in. But Silvia, we'll start with a question for you. I should highlight that Dawn said thanks for the great presentation, so thank you for that, to reiterate that. But she asked, how did you engage with the residents and how did they react to the vision and the plans for green infrastructure?
Okay, I will try. Our action plan, the actions of our plan is composed by a strategic vision and also a sort of participative action. And for each areas, we identify a way to involve our citizens or associations. And for instance, for the area number 1, via Padova, now we are in the middle of participatory process with the citizens, and it was a success because the idea of this bottom-up reforestation project was promoted by an association. They wanted to present a bid to be funded by the region, and they need a document, a sort of policy instrument to work on, and they ask for perfect. So they, how can I say, they came to us, you know, and it was a very, very good news for me. Now, the first time I presented the perfect slide as the one I show you, the audience of citizen was perplexed, I think, because the strategic vision is very difficult to tell, to explain, and a lot of comments were, okay, no, but just words, useless words. Please go out, come outside, plant trees, and you say no. It's not always the same, plant trees here or in another place. Now, so the first phase was complicated, but the next steps have been more relaxed, and now the group is working well.
Yeah, oh, that's good. And I think you're, I'm hoping, Christine, are you still there?
Yes, I'm there. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Just knows. Thank you ever so much, Silvia. Christine, I know the audience for your the case study that you talked about was obviously different. It was very much about getting that political buy-in, which sounds like you did fantastically well. And that, you know, great that you were able to get politicians to both get involved with Perfect and then be proactive about wanting to visit other partners as well. We've had one question about the cookbook, which I'll come back to, but I just wondered if, obviously, as we, you know, COVID has been a challenging time for everyone, but it has for many brought forward, you know, raised in people's minds the importance of green infrastructure and access to nature and green space. And I just wondered if you've seen a shift into, you know, obviously you were already on a journey of raising awareness and buy-in for green infrastructure, but whether that has continued, I guess, over the last 14 months, and you've seen even more enthusiasm, perhaps.
Yes, it's in a way a little bit difficult for me to make a statement about that, because since August 2019, I was in the planning department. So I was in charge of checking all these planning instruments, like the land zoning maps and so on. And of course, for me, it was always very important to put in the green infrastructures. And when I did my statements to these changes to the maps, to the municipalities or the planners, I was, of course, forcing this. Then I changed now, and now I'm a partner in a big planning office in Styria. And of course, I put in as much green infrastructure as I got told before from myself. As now I'm a stakeholder. And
perfect.
Still an external expert for the provincial government. I could do this till the project finished, but still now I'm doing this, what I told them. But as I didn't just involve the politicians in the project, but also my colleagues in the office. And I think it is a little bit more stress. They are more stressing now about it. They more making statements. Please put more green infrastructure. Some of them are also saying, use the cookbook. You have it, and so on. And it's online on the homepage. But according to COVID-19, I have the feeling that there are much more bigger wishes now to have a real estate outside the city side and with a big area around with green. So when you be a spatial planner or an urban planner, this is not really the right development, because normally you should say more density is needed, living in bigger houses, more flats and settlement and so on. But the wish here in Austria is to have green around and to use more green. This is, I think, that is European or worldwide now.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, we've had a couple of questions about the cookbook. So somebody has asked who the cookbook is aimed at. So is it predominantly sort of councillors, or is it developers, or is it for everybody?
It is for all our stakeholders, and the stakeholders were the planners, colleagues from other departments of the steering government, and especially made for the councils of the municipalities. It's written, like you said, it was a fun. It came out as a fun. We said, okay, we make a cookbook. And then, of course, when you're in it, you say, okay, you need good, healthy ingredients. What is it? We have the planning instruments. And then we said, okay, I know a lot of mayors in Styria, and they would say, okay, the good examples, the international cuisine, which you are having, the recipes in your cookbook for Amsterdam, for example, that is not nothing for us because we are a small municipality with, I don't know, 2,000 inhabitants. So we also put some recipes from the local cuisine. So there's some small cities in which have already good examples. So I think it's easy readable. So if they need a help, it's in it.
Thank you. And so we've been asked a question specifically for you, Christine, but I will ask it of both of you, but phrase it slightly differently, I think. So somebody has said, in relation to the cookbook, what if developers don't deliver it? What if they don't comply? What happens? And I think that, so I can ask you, Christine, first, and then Silvia, perhaps I'll come to you if the sort of, obviously it's that you've got a great plan, you've got the strategic vision, but how do you make sure people help deliver it? So we'll come to Christine first, perhaps in relation to your experience.
Okay, yes, I'm not anymore in the authority, but my colleagues quite know how they should handle, and they are making the statements according to this. This is always awareness raising, I think. It is, as you said, the developers, the planners. We, as the planners, we are the experts. We know what we should do. Save the areas and so on, reduce the ceiling, putting more green infrastructure. The mayors, they need this feeling a little bit more, but I think they got it, especially in the COVID time. And my colleagues from the authority, we always check that in a way. And yes, they get negative statements, and the more you get a negative statement and your case is not really coming through the governmental decision, because they have to come through the governmental decisions. And when then there is this mistake, okay, you use too less green infrastructure, yes, then it's a problem for the municipality. But it comes. The more problem is the investors, to convince them, because they see their building up area, the real estate, 100% must be building up land. And if you say 20% should be green, they say, no value for it.
Yeah, and so what do you do?
Try to convince them. Last January, last year, before COVID broke out, I had in a smaller city, south of Graz, it was so-called Economy Day, which they have every year, and there were 400 people there. Just developers, economic people who owns industrial areas in that municipality or surroundings. So showing them good examples and giving them the cookbook in the hand. I hope that their mind changes, but it maybe COVID helps in that way too.
Yeah, no, we have similar challenges certainly in the UK around convincing developers. Silvia, similar theme, I guess, for you of again, we have experiences in England and across the UK where we can write fantastic green infrastructure strategies and we can write fantastic plans, but of course it's actually getting the implementation, it's getting the delivery. And just wondered if there were reflections and learnings from your experience that you might be able to share.
First, I think that the strategy included in a plan is important because you can use a sort of tools that are also to force developers, for instance, sorry, the word, compensation, or something, or right development transfer. So you have different tools that you don't have in the ordinary action. The other problem I see that we have a lot of interest in planting trees, but we don't have public areas. Our public areas are full of trees in some neighborhoods, and people ask for new trees, but we don't have the surface. So the problem is the involvement of owners, I think, of cultivated land in the peri-urban belt. And so the integration of urban tools with other policy instruments that I don't know, for instance, about the rural development, other form for funding forestation in bigger surfaces. And the other problem for me is that in the last 20 years, public administration in Italy thought as private developers. So abandoned areas, public areas now are completely abandoned. Maybe you can build parks, but you don't because you have in your budget the land value of the site. So I think maybe we need to think about the value of the public heritage and real estate goods in another way to change and to be effective with the bigger results that not only the small garden, not to achieve bigger impacts.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody has asked if we can share the web link for the cookbook, which we absolutely will. Hopefully one of my colleagues might be able to do it now, but if not, we will make sure it's put in during the break and this Q&A will stay live. So we'll definitely do that. And I know, Silvia, you very kindly shared the link because somebody asked about the urban heat mapping software that you've used. So that's also in the Q&A if people would like to see that. Silvia, another question for you. Somebody has asked if you've had insights of the effects of from the 7 green pilot projects on the health and well-being of the inhabitants and the community. But perhaps it's too early for that, I don't know. But I wondered if there was any data that was coming out around that.
Yeah, in fact, because this is a strategy we are proposing to the citizen. The process to build a general urban plan is not finished yet. We are working on it. Maybe in 1 year, I think we will approve it. And so we want to, how can I say, select all this action and find what people really want, you know, because of course this is a sort of top-down proposal from my point of view, no? So no insight, not yet.
Question for you, Christine. Diane has asked, do you think that the EU-wide system of elected mayors helps with establishing green policies, or does it make it too reliant on political favour? Yeah.
To be neutral, yes, of course, the Green Party has its, we have now the Green Party in the Austrian Parliament, and I think that's European-wide the same. Those are not from the Green Party. They now are affecting them and blaming them and so on. But there are still, I think, the other parties. And if I come down now to the local level, it is like, of course, they see the green topic as a good chance now, especially with COVID and so on, and the climate issue, and they take it over. So I don't think that because the mayors here, most of the mayors in Styria are from the Social Party or from the Conservative parties. I don't think there is any from the Green one. So I think if we convince them, then we convinced all the parties. Doesn't matter from the color.
And Silvia, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that one.
We have changed the mayor during the Perfect project. In the middle of the project, changed party, everything, and no problem for us. So I think it's a good news. The green sensitivity is coming transversal, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and young people are doing a lot of pressure to this.
Yeah, I think in England it's an interesting one. I think, of course, our government the Westminster government is talking a lot about levelling up, which means different things to different people, I think. But a key part of that is meant to be more devolution. And I think that, mayors, I think, some of them are being innovative and using it, the power quite innovatively. And it's interesting, I think, for us to see what some are doing and trying to then use that as examples to either share across the country or indeed try and influence national policy to make things easier and enable change. So it's from our point of view, I think it's an opportunity for innovation, which some are using, and it's interesting to see. But of course, it's great for some places and others are being left behind, and that's part of the challenge, isn't it, in terms of the importance of green space for people, and risks, I guess, exacerbating some inequalities that we know already exist, both in terms of health and wider inequalities. So I'm conscious, so any more questions, please, people do put them in the Q&A. I think I have covered the ones that have come in, but we could potentially have time for one or two more. I think I will ask one, and if that's all right. So I know a really core part of the TCPA's work is around the long-term stewardship of place. So the mechanisms that need to go in. So you can't just build either a new community or put in some green infrastructure in an existing place as part of a regeneration scheme and then just sort of leave it. Because of course we won't maximize the benefits, and the quality will decline over time. And so we talk a lot about those mechanisms for actually trying to maintain places and the stewardship of place. And I wondered, Silvia, Christine, whether again that's something that's part of either the cookbook or the policies that you're trying to get into, that you've been talking about, Silvia, around how do we try and get the new green infrastructure in the network in the first place, but also ensure it's maintained over time to maximize the benefits that it provides. Christine, I wondered if that's something that you could join from Austria.
Putting in or setting determinations in our planning instruments, this is lasting for 10 years. So this local development concept is renewed every 10 years and lasts for 15 years, for example. So this is in a way a long-term securing the green infrastructure, but at the end it comes to the zoning map where the real area is, the real estate, which has to be greened. In our zoning maps, in my office, for example, we put in, of course, use native plants so that the landscape looks nice, of course. And we also put in that the building department in the municipality has to check if this was planned, because we can plan a lot, but if they really planned the green infrastructure, it's up to the municipalities, of course.
Mm-hmm. And Silvia, is there elements in the work you've been talking about around recognising importance of maintaining
about the maintenance of green spaces?
Yeah.
Yes, two points. In Ferrara, we have a regulation for the adoption of green areas. It's working well. We presented also, I think, in a meeting of Perfect. And of course, you need to work with communities that are already built, already existing. And another experience from Ferrara is that recently the Green Areas Office started the process to share the new content of the service contract with the society that do the maintenance activities. And the new service contract was written with the collaboration of some environmental association of the city, Fridays for Future, and so maybe this connection with also the maintenance tools is very important to because maybe how can I say, with a strategy you can force people to understand also the value, for instance, of no cutting grass, no, for biodiversity, and you can get money to do other interventions. So it's a sort of cultural process, and maybe we must work on the plan of the maintenance. And is it clear?
No, it's good. Thank you. Christine, another question for you. Someone has asked, is there any pressure on the green infrastructure areas within the regional development concept, which I know you mentioned, from developers that attempt to offset the loss of land with compensatory planting or green space elsewhere?
Yes, that's a very good question. Because these regional development concepts we have in Styria regional planning, as I know from TCPA, from England, from Hugh, we don't have it since 2010. We have it still, but also in the other provinces of Styria, they don't have it really everywhere. So just some of them, and they are very, we are proud that we have it, because, you know, being a mayor in a city or the councillors who make the decisions if somebody gets a building up land, that is very difficult to say to the people, no, you can't get it. So this regional development concept gives, as it's on a higher level, the mayor can say, no, I would have given it to you, but it is an area for agriculture, for example. This regional development concepts exists in Styria since the early 19th and have been changed just 3 times. So this is, the last change was just because we did some merging of municipalities, because we had much more before. So now this is the last one from 2016. And yes, of course, now when I'm a planner in my municipalities, they say, how can we change the regional development concept? I said, this you can't change. You can give there a wish that you want to have building up area there instead of agricultural area. And then they say, yes, but that's not fair. This is not a good agricultural place, and so on and so on. So it's very, let's say, it is possible to change, but not easy. And when it's changed, then, sorry to say this now, open stage, then it was a political decision behind it.
Okay, thank you. And very final question for this session, because I'm conscious of time. David has asked, how much is the management of stormwater runoff involved in determining the future use of green space? So Silvia, perhaps, if we might come to you.
The rainwater management is a problem in many neighborhoods of the city, and I think the path is long, because the quality of the project sometimes the project use always the same traditional language, so also inserting a small depression in the green water, it's a longer process, and you need also very high knowledge of the site, because it's sort of you have to work on a small slope, no, and so sometimes the projects are made very quickly, and we don't have a shared sensitivity, and to this team I think we will need.
Okay, thank you. Christine, are you desperate to come in on that one, or are you any views on stormwater runoff?
Yeah, the problem here in Styria or in Austria with the water management is very visible. There were a lot of floodings in the last years because of the very streamy water or rivers we have, but also very much with the slope water, which coming down the slopes, because we are a very hilly country. But this is already, yeah, every municipality has to make, when they make a bigger change in their maps or in their planning instruments, they have to have a concept about the floodings. So they need to take care of this. And I mentioned about the 10 or 20 meters open space, green area along the rivers. This is also because of the floodings, of course, to be aware.
Right, thank you ever so much. I must thank our speakers, Christine and Silvia. Thank you so much. I think your presentations were really interesting in how different they were and the different emphasis, and I just think that they were really, really fascinating. So thank you both, and thank you for being such fantastic partners in the Perfect project as well. Thank you to our audience for your questions. I think I just about covered most of the themes that people raised, so thank you for those. There will now be a short break until 11:30, when we hope people will join us again here on the stage for the final session of the conference. As I mentioned before, we will add the link. I'll find the link for the cookbook and we'll make sure we share it. But there are also resources in the expo, which I hope are over there. I might be pointing in the wrong direction. And also, as mentioned, there is the networking facility. So if you don't want to dash off and make a warm drink, then please do have a dig around on the networking tab and see if you can chat to some people. But thank you again for everybody for your involvement, and hopefully see you in the next session. Thank you.